Hello and welcome everyone to Game Over Ottawa. My name is Nick Robinson and I'm joined tonight by Damian Smith, where we'll be discussing how 4 years under either a Harris Walls or Trump Vance ticket affects the Ottawa Senators on election night here. Just kidding. We're going to be unfortunately breaking down a Damien, what I would say is the worst game so far of the Ottawa Senators season. Fair to say, 5-1 loss in Buffalo to the Sabres. You and I have chatted the past two Tuesdays, and I'd say those are the two best games to this point of the Senators season. But there's really no way of cutting it other than it was bad, Damien.
Yes, pretty much all around. Like there were some, I guess, decent moments in there, but it's because you're against Buffalo and they're a bad team, straight up.
I'd say those are the two best games.
And they're not like the worst team in the world, I guess. But this Buffalo's bottom of the barrel right now, and they've been off to a tough start. Um, this was simply just a terrible game for the Ottawa Senators all around. The goaltending was not good. Allmark, I'm a little bit concerned. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know about you, Nick, but it some bad thoughts are creeping in my mind right now. But I'm gonna brush them away. I'm gonna let this game sit tonight, and they're 500 still. They could be like so they're 6-6. They could be 3-9, right? I know that's such a loser mentality, but they could be worse, I guess. And this is sort of what we asked for, I think. I think we asked to be in the mix. So I hope I'm making someone feel better being a fan. But yeah, I'm just trying my best to like stay calm in this moment.
Yeah, I think we all are. We're going to touch on Linus Olmark just a little bit better, but let's get into some of the particulars about this game. It was a quick start for the Sabres. You can debate the penalty call that was assessed to Brady Tkachuk, who I think he was given an unsportsmanlike penalty for going after Jordan Greenway after Jordan Greenway laid a big hit on Tim Stützle. The two of them fought. Buffalo ends up with the power play out of it. Ottawa gets the extra minor. Not a great call in my mind, but Buffalo capitalizes on the power play. But Damien, overall, I thought the Senators played an okay first. Aside from that, they had a couple of chances. But it was the start to the second period where things sort of seemed like they were unraveling. And it's going to be a big theme into what we talk about. The Senators just didn't start any of the three periods particularly well. Second period, they start with a pretty weak goal. Bowen Byram sneaks one by Linus Olmark. Any concerns for you in that regard with how they came out in the first and then it sort of carried over into the second after things improved, but they quickly unraveled in that early part of the game?
Okay, so here's the thing that I'll say is that I think even we talked about this after the St. Louis game. The start of their periods, for the most part, in this year have actually been pretty decent. Or at least the start of the games, right? The first 5 minutes of each period overall has been not too bad. You compare it to the Colorado game, where they allowed in two periods they allowed two goals in like the last minute or so, right? This game, that's the complete opposite. So I don't see like a trend here happening at least so far because like the Sens have had two shutouts so far, right? So they've actually I think for goals against heading into this game they were tied for eighth, I believe, in the entire NHL. But we got to talk about the road deficiencies, right? Um, as these issues are not popping up at home, right? Our only loss was against New Jersey, and that's a damn good team. Now all of a sudden you're 1-5 on the road. So like, where is this coming from, right? And to answer your question though, I mean that Byram goal. I'm sorry, like I'm not a goalie. Like I'm not a goalie hugger like a lot of people out there. But you got like, I'm sorry, man, you have to make that save. It wasn't even like a one timer. It was sort of, but he didn't get all the shot on it, and it was like a nice saucer pass from McLeod, I guess. And then you go back to like the third period, right? Bowen Byram, or sorry, it wasn't was it Byram?
It
The
was
third? Oh, he
Byram.
got two
Or
goals.
yeah,
I
I think
didn't
he
realize
may
this
have gotten
game.
credit for the third one. It was that little
Hmm.
loose play. But again, the common theme there being they just didn't start periods well, right?
Yeah, I guess so. At the same time, it's like, please make a save.
Yeah.
Like, please. Um, like, make one of those, and maybe we could be talking about a different game. But even then, I think actually Buffalo came out really well tonight. All things considered, if we're the Sens didn't play great, but we can also um, give compliments to the other team. Buffalo, they came out flying. They came out. They used their speed. And they used their defense as well, like their offensive defensemen, Power, Deline, uh, um, um, Iram. They were super mobile tonight, and they were controlling the pace of play, especially the blue line, extremely well. And they were playing to their advantages. And of course, we got goalied again. Um, Another great performance by goaltender on the road for the Sens. So UPL, what did he make, like 35 saves out of 36 shots, something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
like
let's break it down a bit more. Um,
mm,
that start to the third period was particularly bad. The two goals in, I think it was 18 seconds. The failed challenge, so Buffalo goes to the power play. That was the pivotal moment of the game for me. I think it was for everybody because the Senators had done well to get back into it at that midway point of the second, but the goal by Ridley Gregg, it was a great pass from Tim Stützle, but you're sort of, again, with this team, you're expecting them to come out with a bit of jump like they've shown at times this year, like they've shown in flashes, but they really just fell on their face in the third period, and it was, I would say the third period was probably the worst period of hockey that they've played this year. Just especially that like first 5 minutes, it would just, you can tell as soon as that third goal goes in to make it 3-1. Yeah, there's a little bit of a shake of the head and stuff on the bench. And then as soon as the fourth went in, I think, to be honest, I was a lot more dialed into to the news and what's going on out in the world than I was, the Senators game. Um,
yeah,
let's
you start looking at Twitter a lot more. That's what I do
Yeah,
when I start noticing.
exactly. Let's circle back to the one positive being the goal. Again, more brilliance from Tim Stützle. I thought Ridley Gregg, if you're gonna pick one player that had an okay game, it's probably him. He got the goal after Juuso Pekka made a really good save. He taps in the rebound. Um, let's focus on the goal. There was a lot to like there. Sort of the Senators are doing a really good job transitioning the puck this year, and that was a full in-flight play. Stützle gets it, then snaps it across the ice. Um, Another example, Damien, of him, just being a little bit more physical this year and how it's helping as he sort of evaded a couple of checks on that to find Greg for that goal.
Yeah, Stutz was getting a lot better at that. We obviously knew he had the speed and the hands and everything like that to get around the ice very well. But if he's gonna, I don't want to say the P word, but if he's gonna be playing in playoff hockey and playing it well one day, then he better get used to having not just one check, but two or even three, right? Because we know his like reputation around the league at this point. Um, he's a diver, quote unquote, to many fan bases out there, and it started a couple of years ago. And it also doesn't help that he's European, right? I think a lot of people might not say it, but he's a European player, so that's just going to happen. Um, if a European player dives, fans are going to be hard on him. But yeah, like he's going to have to get prepared to take hits for a long, long, long time if he's going to be not only a good player in this league, but thrive and be like a legit first line center, a guy who you can trust down the road, playing down the middle in very tight situations. And that's just a quick example, right? So shout out Timmy there.
As we just wrap up our quick discussion on the game, I just want to remind everyone to check out the flagship show of the Game Over Network on the Game Over Network channel, Hyperdrive Hockey. It's where you can find all things hockey across various leagues in multiple countries, whatever it is and wherever it is. Max, Daphne, and Kev have you covered for all your hockey news with a steady dose of fun and fan engagement. You can find Hyperdrive Hockey on the Game Over Network YouTube channel or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, and on the Hyperdrive Hockey page at thegameovernetwork.com. Damien, last thoughts on the game. Um, are, it was it. Can you excuse this a bit because it was maybe a bit of a trap game the Sabres had lost 3 in a row coming in. You knew they were going to come out a bit harder given the circumstance. It's against the Senators, a team that they want to be competing with towards the end of the season. Can you excuse it at all from that perspective if you look at it through that lens?
Okay. Here's what I'll say. If this is probably like there are other games, yes, I guess they lost. It was a bad game against Montreal. That was 9 or 10 games ago. Like it's an interesting question because how many stinkers can you have in a season if you're going to make the playoffs, right? So
Mm-hmm.
right now, consider we've had two. Because the Vegas game, the Colorado game, those games were close. They were like 1 goal games of the empty netters. New Jersey was 3-1, right? Um, so how many stinkers can you have in a season if you're going to be a legit playoff team, right? And if you have two every 10 games, I don't think like that gives a reason for the fan base to be worried. And we know this fan base is worried. I am. I don't know about you. I think might be a little bit less than me. Um, I'm sort of all over the place. Like the other day, man, I was wondering, it's like, okay, let's get ready for the playoff push and stuff. But now this pulls you back and it humbles you, right? So, man, I don't know where we're at, man.
Yeah, neither do I. Okay, let's transition to a bigger story. It's one that we sort of were touching on in sort of the context of the game overall. I have particular interest in it because I'll be going to the game on Thursday at home to the Islanders. But Damien, do we have a goaltending controversy 10 games into the season here? 12 games now, I guess. Uh, Anton Forsberg has played pretty well, I'd say, in his last 3 to 4 starts. Linus Olmark, good start, bad start, good start, bad start. Can't really seem to get his flow going. Do we have a goaltending controversy? Is it too early to say that?
Um, like, all right, I think so that I don't think there is controversy still. Um, like Allmark, I'm sorry, man. This guy has not been good enough. Like you said, good game, bad game, good game, bad game. And we'll see. Because one thing is with like, it's like the save percentage, right? Forsberg brought himself back up to a 910. So that's pretty nice. Uh, Allmark's now going to be under a 900. Um, and it seems like he either allows 5 goals or he allows like one. Like there's really no in between, right? If you go back to it, he played in the Florida game. He allowed 1 goal. And then he got injured, and he came back. He played well St. Louis. He allowed 1 goal there. He played against. He didn't play against Colorado. He played against Vegas, and he allowed 5 there. Um, and then he played against. Sorry, I'm blanking on one. But of course, this game he allowed 5 again. So I know he's settling in and stuff, but I think on Thursday you give the start to Allmark just to like put that game away, store in the back of your mind, like forget about it. And I think he's a good goaltender at doing that because I think he is overall like very calm. I don't think he gets too high. I don't think he gets too low. Um, so I think people might want Forsberg back in the net on Thursday at home because maybe that favors the backup goalie a little bit more. But he's your starter, right? You probably got to start him 2 out of 3 games, so you might as well give him another shot. Um, because if you keep him out and the Sens play on Saturday, and you got to wonder, it's like, does it get to his head a little bit? Right? So that's what I'll say.
Yeah, I think with Linus Olmark, there's been some rumors now, nothing substantiated about maybe just some personal things. He might be having just a little bit of a off ice struggle getting used to things in Ottawa. We're not gonna talk about that because that's obviously just a lot of speculation at this point. And I do think there is a fair point in that though that Linus Olmark, it's a new team, a new system, new country for him. So he's maybe just going through it a bit at this point. But I agree with you. I'd probably go back to Allmark on Thursday against the Islanders. Don't, sit him down. Let him get that confidence back up. The Islanders are a high scoring team. Just, and at the end of the day, you brought in Allmark to be your number one. So if he's ready to go, on Thursday. I don't see why you don't go back to him. But it does make sense also to just give the game to Forsberg because they've got a trip to Boston coming this weekend, and you know that's probably one that Olmark is circling on his calendar, coming up probably against his buddy Swayman on the other end in that one. So, I mean, we'll see what they do, but it's fair at this point that a lot of fans are going to make calls here in the next couple of days to give Forsberg a run in the net because he played those 5 games in a row with Olmark out injured to varying degrees of success, but I mean you can't really argue with the fact that Forsberg's been pretty solid now in his last few starts, especially in that game against Seattle on the weekend.
Right?
Yeah, he made the big save in that third period of that game when he needed to, when the Sens were sort of on their heels, and I think at times we were all sort of hoping he was going to pull the same thing tonight, particularly maybe in the first minutes of the second and third periods when the Senators were just really flat, and they just didn't get the saves tonight, whereas the Buffalo Sabres did. So you would go to Olmark on Thursday though, if he's ready to go.
I would. Yeah. Like, okay, it's one thing. Like, I think we can pile an Allmark. Like, I think he probably deserves it a little bit after that game for sure. Especially that third goal, at the start of the third period and the start of the second period. Right, those are the huge momentum goals because, dang, like you have the intermission, then you come out, and then you're excited to get back in this game, and then boom, like a goal in the first 15 seconds. Right, so that played out just sucks overall. But also, like, the Sens didn't give him any goal support, right? I know they got some chances tonight, right? And you can look at there's some tough ones, like the Gregor one. Remember when Norris and Gregor 2-on-0? Usually 99 out of 100 times they do the little, like, you have two lefties, you have Norris on the right, you have Gregor on the left. Norris at the puck, he passes it to Gregor, and he's on his strong side, right? But instead of passing it back to Norris, who's on his one-timer side, Gregor decides to shoot it. And we know that Gregor is a useful depth player. And he's probably not thinking that on the 2-0, that, like, I need to pass it back to Norris because he has a higher shooting percentage. NHL players, I feel like they do that every single time. Norris on the right side, on his offside, pass over to Gregor, and you do the little give and go. And it's really hard for goalies to stop that. They might anticipate it. I think that they sort of overcomplicated that play there. And I think at that point in the game, I believe it was 1-0 Buffalo. So, the Sens could have got back in that game. The Sens got some shots. They got some chances tonight. We know that Buffalo has a leaky defense. We know that. But UPL was great. He was great. But we also didn't give him Allmark any goal support tonight. So that's also why I'm saying it's like, you know what, let's stick him back in on Thursday.
Yeah, as we finish up this discussion, I just want to remind all our listeners and viewers that the Game Over Network is an independent production focused on community inclusion and quality people. And if you're interested in supporting the Game Over Network, we have several crowdfunding options available. In the description of this episode, wherever you're listening, you're going to find a link to our Patreon page, and we're also working on a page through LaRouche, a crowdfunding platform for companies originating in Quebec. For LaRouche, we're aiming to raise $15,000, and if we hit that goal, we'll gain access to more government grants that will allow us to employ more people. So if you have any ideas for what you'd like to see as giveaways from these crowdfunding efforts, please let us know in the comments of this video or podcast. Let us know on Twitter, Instagram, or our Discord server. Damien, just wrapping up the discussion on the goaltending. Do you pin the entirety of this loss on Linus Ullmark just because he didn't come up with those timely saves and there were a couple of goals in there, or was this just more of a flat effort from everybody involved tonight?
Yeah, like, if you want to put a percentage on it, like, I'd put it 60% Allmark, maybe 40% players. Because it's like one thing, okay, please make the save in the first minute. At the same time, the Sens didn't try in the third period. You even said that earlier. Like, they flat out, like, the first 5 minutes were just god awful. And then at that point, it's 4-1, so you're basically out of it. So overall, like the team, it's one thing for the players to be like to see their goaltender put up a bad performance and feel a little bit queasy going into the future, right? But at the same time, they can also put the blame on themselves there that game, and it's tough, man, because they played their best game against Seattle on Saturday.
Hmm.
I know they didn't win 8-1, but did you like I don't know if you watched that game,
I did.
but they allowed basically nothing to get to the net. And Forsberg was good, but the team was also they played so good defensively. Like amazing. Like maybe in the best game defensively I've seen in years. I can't think of a better performance. And then they follow it up with this. So then you got to wonder, it's like, do they just are they just bad on the road? Like, is there something that gets to their head a little bit? Is it a mental challenge? And that those are answers maybe we're going to see as the year goes on. But if you're 1-5, go in. Uh, if you're going 1-5 at a pace for the entire season, you're not making playoffs. Straight up, it's not happening. You got to be like 41-0 to even get a shot at it. So
Well, let's focus in on some of what you just said about the road. Um, Before we do that, I've just got one more little announcement I want to do here. Game Over has you covered after the game, but in order to get ready to watch the Sens, you've got to get your game on too. And Game On Ottawa is a short form daily news podcast covering everything you need to know about the Ottawa Senators. Hosted by Michael Czar, get all your Sens news in under 10 minutes Monday through Friday on the Game Over Ottawa YouTube channel and in podcast form, which you can find at thegameovernetwork.com/pages/Ottawa. That's Game On Ottawa. Um, Damien, let's talk a little bit more about the struggles on the road versus at home because um, they've beat some pretty good teams so far. The Senators this year on home ice, they've beaten Florida.
yep.
They played very good against Tampa. Um, St. Louis and Seattle are teams that they should be beating, but they had like very good performances in those games against those teams. But then it's at times looked like the inverse on the road. These are two very, very poor divisional games now against Buffalo and Montreal away. They've got Boston on the road this coming Saturday. They're in Toronto next week. Those are going to be hotly contested games that all the fans are going to want them to play better in. From your eyes, what's going on the road? Because while they've played some good games against Vegas, Colorado, and New York, they've played some really, really poor ones. Are the bounces not going their way, or is it a matchup thing? Is there anything you're picking up on?
It's I wish I could tell you, man. I wish I could. It's got to be a matchup thing. Like this is not this has been a thing for a long time, right? Like when was there a year where the Ottawa Senators had a good road record? When we took a look at the 82 game standings and we're like, oh, they actually did pretty well on the road this time. Like they were 500 or they were, maybe a little bit above that. Because they haven't been above 500 really at all in the past 7, 8 years or whatnot. I mean, so if you go back to last year, they were 16 at 23-2. Um, if you go back to the year before where they were above 500, they were 15, 21, and 5. 21, 22, they were 18-20, so not bad there. 2020, like in the COVID year, the Ottawa Senators were 9-18 away, and then 2019-20, if I just want to go back that far, the Ottawa Senators were 7-21. Historically, man, and it's like the top players have been there in that time. The Brady Kachucks, the Thomas Chabot's, mostly Tim Stutzla, Drake Batherson, Josh Norris, all those players. So you got to wonder, right? Like those are the guys who have been here for a while, and they've been on those teams, and they're the leaders on the team. They're the guys getting paid the most money. I don't have an answer for you, but why do they like just why are they not good on the road? Simply put, like I'm kind of stumped here because it always seems like maybe there's something there where their confidence is lacking. Like they'll allow a goal and then they're kind of just defeated, and then you see something like happen at the end of the game where Brady just goes after a player, and I'll I'll ask you this: like, are you sick of seeing that
Yeah, at
at the end
times.
of the game?
I've liked not seeing it so much this year. I've liked so much that Kachuk hasn't been in the fighting, scrappy mood.
Yeah,
I think,
I
there's
agree.
been all kinds of stats shown that he's not hitting as much. Tonight in the first period against Jordan Greenwhite, that was his first fight of the year. I've never been a big fan of the what's been a commonplace in the since they drafted Brady Kachuk late in games when they're losing, just inciting stuff with the other team for not a lot of reasons. We'll see how Travis Green handles that compared to DJ Smith. I think DJ Smith, obviously we're not in the room, but it seemed to me like he was very okay with it, encouraged it, saw it as like a good thing that they were showing fight. But I mean, based on what we've seen out of Travis Green so far, whether he likes it or not, that's not for me to speculate on. But I anticipate we'll probably see some sort of a hard practice tomorrow for the team, um,
Yeah,
given their effort tonight, which I think will be well earned. Yeah, I'm not. I've never been big on the whole message sending thing late in the games.
yeah,
Mind you, this was a bit of a
dude.
chippy game at times. Tonight, there was a lot of big hits thrown early and things like that. So I
Mhm.
can maybe understand it to some degree, but sometimes it just comes off completely as like sore loser type of behavior,
Yeah,
and so I've never been big on it from that perspective. Um, you know, Now seeing another road game where it looks like I'd say from the perspective of a road game, you don't get the last change. So trying to make sure you get your matchups is a little bit more difficult. And I think tonight, um, one thing that did show is that when they're trying to get Jake Sanderson out against some of the best players on the Sabres, against Tage Thompson, Paterka, Tuck. I think tonight we saw a bit of the downside, really, that we've been seeing the past couple of weeks of having Travis Hamonic stapled next to him. Um, given how much that pairing has struggled, it struggled again tonight. Damien, would you make the lineup change if Artem Zub is good to go Thursday or Saturday, whatever day it was? This isn't totally related to their play on the road, but um,
Mhm.
would you take Travis Hamonic out, or would you take Jacob Bernard Docker
Yeah.
out of the lineup?
I'm taking Hamonic out. Yeah, like, okay, let's see here. Sanderson -1, Hamonic -1, JBD and Clevin, who also did. JBD and Clevin did not have a good night as well. Um, they got hemmed in quite a bit in the second period, I believe. They were the fourth line. I'm putting Zubin. We need him back. He wouldn't have saved this game for sure, but we need. Uh, it's unfortunate because Hamonic, it's just when he gets the puck, it's like a grenade for the most part. And I don't want to harp on him because there's been some moments where he's stepped up, like late in the Seattle game. He's good at blocking shots. He's a decent penalty killer and stuff. But I don't think that's enough to be a guy in your top four. Uh, and you can't rely. Sanderson is not Quinn Hughes. He is not Cale Makar.
Not
He
yet.
needs a guy. Yeah, well, right. Like, I think people really started overhyping Sanderson to start the year because he started hot, but then 7 of his 8 points have been on the power play, right? He's not a guy that's gonna. He's not a guy who's gonna have a bunch of spinoramas at the blue line, have like 70 assists a year. He's a guy that is probably gonna be 50, 60 points. So that means he needs a guy that uh, he can play with that can also transport the puck. And Artem Zub, he can do that, right? And it makes other teams question. It's like, okay, how is the play going to develop? Whereas with Hamonic and Sanderson, man, they've been playing together for what, almost 10 games now? They know what to expect. They know that Hamonic's going to get the puck, he's going to pass to Sanderson. And Sanderson is still young in this league, sort of, right? He might get overwhelmed at times, even though it doesn't seem like he does. But if you're putting him in the top pair with Hamonic, things like that are going to happen, and the change will be necessary. And thank goodness Artem Zub is basically back at this point.
All right, wrapping up our discussion on this game and a bit of the road play. Given how poor Sens have been on the road, are we back into must win? I'm
Oh,
Yeah, I'm putting air quotes over must win on
no.
Thursday against the New York Islanders. Is your confidence level in this team going to take a significant dive if they don't come up with the goods at home on Thursday?
Yes. Yes. It's a long season, right? It's a long season. I mean, let's okay. November just started, right? November just started. We've had 2 games so far. No, we've had three. Okay, so we're 1-2. And honestly, and like the November curse sort of got broken last year. Like it wasn't amazing, the record, but it wasn't terrible. We weren't like 1-8-1 or something like that. So that's lifted. But this team better have a good performance. Like they got I don't care if it's 8-1 or if it's 3-2 in overtime. You got to get the win. You got to get the 2 points. I'm sorry. Like there's been too many times this year where we've lost games based off of little small plays. And um like I'll give you an example tonight. I know it was 5-1, but the Brady fight, like I it shouldn't have been a penalty because that created the first goal of the game for Buffalo, right? And sure, like you got to kill the penalty and stuff, but also that was a clean hit. That was a clean hit. Stutzla's going to be 23 in January. He's not a kid anymore. He's not fresh into the league, and like that's a clean hit from Jordan Greenwood, and he's got to learn how to take it, and he does. I think. Like I don't think he's the guy that's like flopping all over the ice 24/7 and stuff. But Brady's got to understand that like you got to let this guy just take the hit and move on. It was a clean hit. He had his head down in the neutral zone. He had the puck. So you don't got to fight. Like you don't got to fight at the start of the game when it's tied too. And then you follow that up with a goal for Buffalo, and then at the end he's going after players. And we've seen that so many times over the years, man. Right? We've seen it so many times. This like I don't want to call it loser culture, but so that's me right now. Like I'm calling out Brady a little bit. Not
All
for his
right.
play on the ice, but for little things like that. Because I know that he can tone it back because he's done it this year, right? He hasn't fought in, uh, and if he's fought, it wasn't. Actually, yeah, that was his first fight tonight, right? So,
Yep.
um,
All right, calling
yeah,
out the captain. Big way to end
yeah, man.
our second last segment here as we transition into our rapid fire segment where we engage with our viewers. But before we do that, I just want to give a shout out to the Game Over merch. That's right. What better way to support something you love than by rocking it as clothing? Game Over's apparel line has dropped with 3 unique designs. So whether you feel like the nostalgic pull of our retro skater design, you want to make a statement with our established design, which is currently on sale, or you want to wear your love for goalies proudly with our live and die by the goalie design, uh, if you need another coffee to get through the winter, we've got you covered in all those situations. Designed by Brady Chalice from Game Over Winnipeg. Use the QR code on the stream now and take a look through our apparel store and help us rebuild local sports media in Canada while repping your community. Damien, I'm taking a look here at the chat. Hasn't been super active tonight. We are
Yeah.
competing with quite the event with our southern neighbors in the United States. I'm looking at one here from Ty Smith pretty early on. He's wondering if it's time to break up Norris and Batherson and possibly move Batherson up to the line with Stutzla and Kachuk to sort of get Batherson going again at 5v5. We've seen that line as a trio in the past. I sort of know my answer, but I'll wait to hear yours first on that one. Would you split up Norris and Batherson?
No, no, I don't think so. I don't actually. I have no idea what you're going to say to this one. Um, but like, I wouldn't. It's okay. Like they didn't do good this game. Like, but who did, right? Who played well? Um, and Pinto might be back soon. We'll see what happens there. But that second line's been awesome. I think you got to give them. Like, they had an off night tonight, but sure, like everyone did. So I would keep him. I would keep him.
Yeah, I would answer the same. I would keep that duo together. I think, Norris and Batherson both aren't perfect players at 5v5, but I do think they get their best results together. If I was to ever make another move on that line, I'd consider putting Kachuk back with them. Um, Claude Giroux's been fantastic with Norris and Batherson, but I still get warm thinking about the trio of Kachuk, Batherson, and Norris from the
Yeah.
21-22 season. Um, but for now, I would keep those two together. I think they just get the best out of each other. It seems they've had chemistry since the Belleville days together. They've really come up through the system together. So I would personally I wouldn't look at splitting them up. I think tonight's just a big time off game for them and for a lot of players. Um, I think honestly the top six is going to look a lot better. The one absence that we're really not talking about. Obviously, it's for pretty personal reasons, but David Perron was brought in to be a part of this top nine, and just he's been away from the team now quite a while. I think there would be a little less emphasis on Batherson and Norris to produce if Perron was there, say, to slot in with Stützle and Kachuk on that line, which is where I would put him when he gets back. Um, the Senators just don't have a ton of depth scoring right now, which tends to sort of paper over the cracks. That third line's really suffered since Shane Pinto went down. Although I've liked Amadio and Gregor in spurts, it's just they need. Shane Pinto is really that missing piece in the top nine. So I think you're seeing sort of the play down effect of Pinto missing and Perron missing, and therefore we're noticing some of the inefficiencies in Norris and Batherson a bit more. We're gonna go to Adam Firebear. Last question. He's wondering if it's perhaps a totally different type of defense in front of Olmark that's maybe thrown him off so far. He's 0-4 on the road. Damien, do you think Linus Olmark's just really adjusting to the new defense? I think the Senators have defended okay for the most part this year. They, by analytic measurements, we'll see where they rank tonight after this game. But coming into this game, I think they were 11th in the league in terms of their expected goals against. They're not allowing a lot of chances, but is there just still an adjustment for Linus Olmark? Do you think?
I don't know. This is always an interesting phenomenon. It's like, do players play differently in front of a goaltender? I don't know. I actually don't. I don't really have an answer for that, right? Because if you're those six demon out there, maybe you might be a little bit more worried if one goaltender's in the net, but shouldn't that be Forsberg, right?
Yeah.
Um, Based off of history, if you're Thomas Chabot or Jake Sanderson out there, if you have Allmark back there for all the hype that was given to him, you gotta feel like, okay, this guy, he's gonna make the saves. Um, Even if we give up a gaff here and there, he's gonna make those good saves, and he's always been a goaltender that can track pucks. So I don't know if it's like a thing of them playing bad in front of him or whatnot, but I'll say this too, Anton Forsberg has found ways to win games no matter what in the past. I think last year he had a record of 15-12, right? Um, he finds a way to win. I think because he's always been a battler, right? His entire career. He was a seventh round pick. It took him years to get into the league. Same thing with Allmark, but he might have that little extra drive, whereas Linus Allmark, not saying he doesn't, but over the years he's played in front of Boston, and you know what? If Boston went up 2-0, you were not coming back against them because you either had Swayman or Allmark in the net. Now it's a little bit of a flip, right? This is where the real question is going to come. Can Linus Allmark actually perform well in front of a team that is not the Boston Bruins? And we're going to see that. We're going to see that this year with the Sens. He's only played 6 games, something like that.
Yeah.
We're gonna see his leash. Because he's already extended anyway, but we're gonna see how he's gonna fare in front of this decor, because on paper it's not bad, and we've seen they've performed well defensively this year. So yeah, I'm not worried about Allmark tremendously, but we will see how it goes down the road. Still a
Well,
lot of season left.
you're right, Damian. There is a lot of season left. It's still early. Things can definitely turn around, but you know, we'll say it. We'll say it after every loss until they start to string some W's together. The angst and the anxiety among
Yeah.
Senators fans, it's high. This team hasn't made the playoffs in a very long time. Um, I know I'm gonna be. I'm not sure if they're practicing tomorrow, but I know I'll probably you as well will be eyes on social media, seeing what the scenes are at their next practice before the team returns home to play the New York Islanders on Thursday. Maude will have the post game coverage of that game as the Ottawa Senators fall back to 500, now 6-6 on the year after a game that they'll probably want to quickly forget, a 5-1 loss to the Buffalo Sabres. We'll see what changes Travis Green wants to make. Hopefully, some health can come down the pipeline before Thursday. But again, it's more of the same from the Senators. The old Senators showing their face again tonight. Let's hope for better on Thursday. Thank you for tuning in to Game Over Ottawa. I've been Nick Robinson, joined by Damian Smith. And thank you for tuning in, listening, watching, wherever you are. And make sure to check us out Thursday night after the game against the New York Islanders. Have a good night, everybody.